Hello, Gen Genies. It's me, Julie.
And Rich.
Before we get started today, we want to let you in on some exciting news. We have launched our new Patreon page for the podcast.
Woohoo! We are super excited about this new chapter for CutOff Genes.
So, Patreon is a website where listeners like you can pledge a small monthly amount. We're talking only $5 or $10, guys, to support the podcast and help defray the costs of bringing you the show each week.
To be clear, CutOff Genes will continue to be absolutely free. But to thank you for your support, we are going to offer our patrons some fun little extras.
Like early access to the podcast every week, where you'll get to hear the latest episode before it's released to the general public.
And why not make your friends jealous with exclusive patron-only CutOff Genes swag?
Fancy. And here's something you guys have been asking for, and I'm really looking forward to this. I'm going to host a monthly, hour-long, online Ask Me Anything session where patrons at the $10 level can literally ask me anything.
Anything? You're a brave woman, Julie.
You know, I know. I'm also going to give access to my blog, Are You My Father?, where I tell the story of my search, actually it's my life story basically, for my biological father in even more detail than I did on the podcast.
Wow, your blog was the original inspiration for CutOff Genes, wasn't it?
It was.
Wow. Well, all patrons at any level will receive a shout-out on the podcast along with our undying gratitude for your support.
Yep. You guys know that this show is a labor of love for me. It's something I'm very passionate about. It'd mean so much to me if you would consider supporting our work here on the podcast by going to patreon.com/CutOff Genes podcast.
That's Patreon, patreon.com/CutOff Genes podcast.
We'll add a link to it on the podcast and on the Facebook page. Thank you all, my Gen Genies.
And now, on with the show.
Woo!
Is your family tree a mystery? Are you fascinated by genealogy? Well, hip, hip, hooray, let's talk DNA with Julie.
The truth is in your genes.
In CutOff Genes.
Welcome to CutOff Genes, the podcast that helps you find your truth using nothing but DNA. I'm Julie Dixon-Jackson, and I'm a genetic genealogist, henceforth known as a Jan Genie.
And I am Richard Castle, the co-host and producer of this podcast. How are you, Julie?
I'm fine. How are you?
Well, you know, I used to think it was just the Earth or America or whatever that had gone to hell in a handbasket, but now I have as well.
Why? What kind of handbasket?
Well, you know,
like one from the grocery store?
It's probably a little larger than a handbasket at this point. It's more like a cart, like a shopping cart.
What's happening?
Oh, just dumb things. You know, like my poor little buddy got attacked by a dog on a walk in Toluca Lake in your area over there.
No.
Yeah.
What kind of dog?
Oh, it was a big, like, boxer/bulldog mix or something, you know.
Like a pitty?
It was, yeah, something like that. I hate to, you know, I know a lot of pit bull dogs in the neighborhood who are very, very sweet, and I hate to, like, lump them in and just say, oh, it's a pit bull.
I know.
You know, because they get such a bad rap. But this dog came out of, you know, ran out of a yard unleashed and attacked him, you know, so...
Were there punctures?
Yes, but he's
no.
he's okay. He's okay. We took him, you know, of course it happened on a Sunday and during the plague.
Oh, so you had to go to the emergency.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
He's okay. You know, I just went and took him for a second visit to the regular vet today, and he's healing well, but he's got the cone of shame on, which he's not very happy about.
Are they covering it? The owner of the dog?
That's a long story, but in a nutshell, the woman who owns the dog claims that she was not the person that I saw that day, that when she came running out of the yard.
This is some Judge Judy stuff.
It is
right
like
here.
Judge Judy stuff. Matter of fact,
Oh my gosh.
yeah. So anyway,
She claims that. What are you going to do?
I don't know yet. I don't know. It's one of those things where you go, is it worth my time and trouble to, like, get lawyers involved when I really just thought we could handle it neighbor to neighbor, you know? She doesn't live there. She was a guest of the home. So
But why would she have her dog off leash?
it's a good question.
Ever?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, look, dogs get out,
Sorry,
you know, they get out.
Yeah.
So anyway.
But you have to
I know.
be responsible, you know?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm really sorry about that.
Yeah. Thank you.
By the way, the wood chipper has started again.
Oh, is it?
Out here.
I'm going to come right over and jump in.
Yeah, Yeah.
I can't hear the words wood chipper without thinking of the movie Fargo. Remember Fargo?
That's exactly what I was about to reference.
You and
I was about to say wood chipper Fargo style. Yeah.
We're two sides of the same coin, Julie.
I know. We're both tails.
Yeah. How are things with you?
Things are fine. I'm very busy. I'm about a quarter of the way through my 4th paint by numbers.
Paint by numbers?
Yeah, I'm doing paint by numbers. And of course, what do you do with them once you're done? Maybe I'll give them away to listeners if they actually would want them, because I can't throw anything away ever that's handmade.
Right.
And heaven forbid I give them as gifts. So
I think we should set up a little challenge. You should think of a little challenge. We need some more Patreon people to subscribe, and perhaps we could do something amongst our Patreon followers.
Yeah, let me think about that. Because, on Patreon, you're not allowed to have competitions.
Oh.
So I can't actually post anything on Patreon, but I guess we could do it.
You could do like a little, I'm going to pick a number out of my hat kind of thing, and then one of these people, one of our patrons, are going to get my paint by numbers, whether they want it or not.
Yeah, and they have to pay shipping.
I'm going to give you a paint by numbers you can't refuse.
I'll take a road trip to your house because I don't want to pay the shipping.
It's a picture of a horse head.
No, they're actually really nice pictures.
That's my Godfather reference. The offer you can't refuse is okay.
I get it. Oh, I see. You tied it all in together.
Oh yeah, you know me, Julie.
Hey, I did a little Q&A for Severance magazine this week.
Oh, what is Severance magazine?
It's an online magazine that is about adoptees and MPEs and DNA and all that stuff that we love.
That's cool.
And so I got to do a little Q&A. I think it's going to be up in the next couple days. So I'll post a link to it in the group. I say nice things about you.
Oh, really? That's
I don't know if they're nice, but I do talk about you.
As long as they're accurate.
Yes, always accurate. I don't want to be misunderstood, but I do want to be Miss Congeniality.
That's never going to happen.
Excuse me, I won Miss Congeniality in the Miss California pageant, and I think it was a fluke.
I think you could fake it back then, You should have just won talent competition.
I didn't even place in talent. What's up with that?
That's unbelievable. I mean, that is ridiculous. You are one of the most talented people I've ever met.
It's a pageant. What do you want?
I always think of that shot. You ever watch the movie Gypsy? From the musical, and they say, "Come on, Gypsy, show us your talent." She just does a pose. This is later when she's the stripper, right? I guess I should have prefaced it.
I love Gypsy.
I do too. It's really a perfect show. I mean, the music is just great. The story is strong. Great characters.
That's a role I could do now.
Oh my God.
Somebody do Gypsy.
Somebody needs to do Gypsy, and you've got to be Mama Rose because, oh my God.
No. I want to be Louise.
Well, if you're going to be Louise, then I'm Dainty June.
No, you're Herbie. You are so Herbie.
I am. You'll never get away from me.
No.
That's a Gypsy reference. That's a Gypsy reference.
They're all Gypsy references. Let's do an all Gypsy podcast.
Oh my God. That would be swell. That'd be great. We'll have our DNA on a plate.
Good.
I hate to tell you this, dear listeners, but Dina Stripesand is kicking the bucket. I think it's too hot up here for her. I've been watering her.
Show me her.
Oh
no.
She's.
Oh, Rich.
Yeah. I've watered her.
And she's not even stripy anymore.
No, she's not. It's such a sad thing.
You're a moiterer.
I'm a moiterer. I'm a moiterer, and I keep thinking like I want to sing "Grow for Me," but from Little Shop.
Maybe you're overfeeding her.
I don't think so. I think this room where I record gets very hot in the afternoon, and perhaps I didn't water her enough.
Why don't you put her out on the balcony? You can save her.
I've got to give her like mouth to leaf resuscitation at this point.
Yes, you can do it, and I think you should. I have faith in you.
So, what else is going on in DNA worlds?
I want to talk about the Genetic Detective with Cece Moore a little bit because we haven't in a few weeks, and they have the 5th episode last night or something like that. And I actually talked to Cece a little bit after the fact. But first, I want to talk about things that I've noticed that made me laugh that in past episodes. So in the Angie Dodge episode, that's a case that we've talked about before, actually. It was in Washington State. But so she works with the local law enforcement. So there's all these cops, these good old boys, she sits there and she's explaining what she does, but it goes way over their heads anyway, but they kind of nod and smile.
Okay.
And then she mentioned autosomal DNA, and they thought it was the funniest word they'd ever heard. And so they just kept, like, every now and again, one of them would look at the other and go, autosomal.
Oh, my God.
So I talked to Cece a little bit, and I asked her for a couple little inside baseball nuggets about the show.
Oh, yeah?
That only our listeners get to know about. Because there are things that she told me that I'm not going to talk about because they were private.
Sure, off the record.
But I asked her for things that I could share with the listeners.
You heard it here first, folks.
You heard it here first. So on episode 2, Hunt for the Runaway Killer, she said that the perpetrator, in researching him, she found 2 separate obituaries 20 years apart.
Oh.
So he had apparently faked his first death.
Ugh.
And that was before he was a rapist. That was before he had done any of the crimes that he got nabbed for, that she caught him for. So he obviously had done more and tried to disappear 20 years ago or 20 years earlier.
Think about what you would have to have done to fake your death, really.
Yeah.
And you would have to disappear from anybody that knew you. Right?
Right. Well, the guy, there's a picture of him being arrested, and he has no shirt on, and he's got, like, swastikas tattooed all over him.
Oh, my God. Really?
He seems nice.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that was a first. I've never found two separate obituaries. That would blow my mind.
You really gotta love it to have a tattoo of it on your body. Like
it's gotta really be important to you.
I'm a big Streisand fan, but you don't find her face anywhere tattooed on my body. At least not where
Liar,
you can see it.
I know exactly where it is. Yeah. So that was that. And then on last night's episode, you guys, if you watched it, it was really good. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The Hunt for the Runaway Killer wasn't the rapist. This guy last night, that was the first case that she had that has living victims. So she got to talk to the victims. So because it's still an ongoing case, because he's pled not guilty and it hasn't gone to trial yet.
I see.
She couldn't give names and stuff.
Okay.
So she did this, hypothetical breakdown of how she figured it out, but she couldn't use any of the names. But the names that she did use were super specific. And she had kind of this weird twinkle in her eye. And she said, all of those names were from my tree. They're all my family. So the hypotheticals that she used on TV was her family. That's why they just flowed out of her mouth so easily.
Oh, that's
She said it was a little inside joke for me.
That's cute. I'm sure that her family names, the people who have those names are thrilled to have been put out there as possible links to the runaway killer.
I think it may have been the people in the past, and I don't think she used their last names.
I see.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever. It was cute, though. Yes. So it was really good to talk to her.
Thank you, Cece, for giving us some inside baseball.
Yeah.
That's about the closest to baseball I'll get.
Ever, especially this year.
Right.
Wah, wah. Okay. Hey, in the group, Emma Lee Margaret Still, our little Aussie, she's in Tasmania. She posted something that actually made me laugh because I'm guilty of this. She said, family history things that grind my gears. I have a distant relative who keeps posting pictures of flowers and another who has pictures of grandmother, grandfather to identify her ancestors. They're just like pictures of the word, I guess.
Okay.
And she said, so all the hints are pictures of random plants and hearts. So she keeps, anything will come up. If that person is in your tree, a hint will come up. And if it's a picture hint, it's whatever is on the picture that's on their profile. Mm-hmm. And so she keeps getting, the same one over and over again. And it's super annoying because you think, a new picture, and it's just another one of those stupid plants or hearts. And I'm so guilty of that because on all of my trees, I put a DNA symbol to signify the path to how we connect or how people connect.
Yes.
So that I can see it when I first look at the tree. So I could imagine people who are looking for people in my tree are so annoyed at me because they're everywhere.
I'm the kind of person, though, and I might have mentioned this in the past, that when I'm on hold for like a technical support or any company that I call and they put you on hold and you hear the music, when the song ends, I think they're going to pick up. Like they're waiting for the song to end.
But it just starts again. And you want to kill somebody because it's that awful song.
But you're so used to like when something ends, like a song ends, that then now there's a commercial or now they're here.
It's because we do musicals. That's why.
Now we're back to the book. And scene.
Yeah. And
speaking of end scene, I think we should take a little break.
If you're enjoying our podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review. Or consider supporting us on our Patreon page, patreon.com/CutOff Jeans Podcast. Now back to Julie and me.
We're back.
We're back. Hello.
Yes. All right. Today, I would like to revisit genealogy myths because we've actually touched on that before, but some things just keep coming up. And in this list that I found by Dick Eastman, there are some that I've never heard before that I thought were interesting that might be helpful.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
All right. So let's just go down. So a myth, we all know what a myth is. They're like family legends that people like hold on to as if they're true, and usually they're not. So that's the bottom line, everybody. So the number one myth, our name was changed at Ellis Island. Now, I did a whole thing on this.
I remember this.
Once.
Yes.
And it turned out, because so many people think, they couldn't pronounce it, and so they just made up another name. That's absolutely not true. The people that were hired to work at Ellis Island were usually immigrants and multilingual. And they were, if the immigrant didn't speak English, then they would get one of those people and they would talk to them. And their names were recorded from the country, in the country that they came from before they got on the ship.
I see.
So they were already on the manifest. So if names are changed, that was their choice after they were already in the country.
A lot of people wanted to Americanize their names so they didn't seem so other, right?
Precisely.
And I think I told you that my mother had thought that her grandfather wasn't, I think she didn't think his last name was accurate because he came from the city of Minsk in Russia and their last name was Mintz. And so anyway, it was just some confusion as to whether that was the last name. I don't know.
I should probably get onto that. I dug into the Waddletons a little bit today.
Did you?
But I was hoping to have something for you by the time we recorded, but I failed.
Oh, well, next time.
But I'm getting there. Because I realized I haven't got beyond your grandfather, Waddleton.
Yes. Okay.
And he was born in Canada.
Yes,
right?
Newfoundland, yes. I believe, yes.
Yeah, no, yes. Yes, Newfoundland. Newfoundland.
Yes.
That's a hard one.
I've got a grandmother from Ireland and a grandfather from Newfoundland. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I did, although I think they were all originally from Ireland.
I think
Did
so
you know
too.
that? Yeah. So what I did was I went down to some of the further, more distant matches that have Waddleton in the name, because it's not a very common name.
No.
So I found a bunch of Waddletons from Newfoundland.
Cool.
But I haven't had time to really connect them, but I think I should be able to. So we'll be able to get a little further.
Whenever I've searched for that name, most of the ones that come up are either in England or in New Jersey, where I know my relatives are on my dad's side. So,
yes.
Yes.
Because they went to New Jersey from Newfoundland.
Yeah, and my grandmother went into Ellis Island in New York, and then from there she just stayed and she moved to New Jersey. She didn't go too far.
Your Irish grandmother.
Right. Yes.
Right. She came into New York through Ellis Island, and he came from Newfoundland.
Yes.
So do you think he just drove down?
I think, you know what? I don't think so.
He may have taken a boat.
Yeah, unless he was magic. He didn't. Maybe he flew. Tell me some more myths.
All right, I will. Okay, this is one that I love. All the records were destroyed during the war.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there are various versions of this, such as they were destroyed in the fire, they were destroyed in the flood, blah, blah, blah. The bottom line is all of any records were not destroyed in anything because the records are never stored in the same place together. So, tax records will be in one place, but census records will be in another place, and blah, 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 blah. The amount of times that I have heard, oh, yeah, we had a fire, is absurd, because surely there have not been that many fires in basements of government buildings, because it seems like that's the go-to answer if they can't find something.
Perhaps, but then I always I watch these old movies where they have candles instead of electric lights, and I think, how did the whole world not burn down? They must have had so many fires. People are walking in the middle of the night with candles in their hands. There's candles on the walls. There's candles on the tables, and I get it. It got dark and they needed light, and I just can't imagine. I think about my dad falling asleep with a cigarette in his hand and finding all the when he was getting old and forgetful, I would find all of these burn marks in the bed and on the carpet.
Oh my gosh.
From he would be smoking in bed. And
never smoke in bed.
Oh, I know.
Especially if you tend to nod off.
Yeah, I know. The neighbors in his condo at the time were terrified.
Sure.
Even though they didn't know that's what was happening, they could, see the decline, and they knew how much he smoked.
Yeah.
Marlboro
that's scary.
hard pack. He used to send me into the packy store to pick up a couple of packs of smokes, and even
the packy store,
the packy store is where you would go and get liquor, but they would also sell cigarettes and stuff.
Wait,
like that.
Why was it called the packy store?
It's a really good question. That's a Boston thing.
Was it owned by Pakistanis?
No, it had nothing to do with It has nothing.
Oh, okay.
No. Packy was for package. For some reason, at the time, liquor could not, and maybe still could not be sold in supermarkets and things like that. There were specific
it's still that
stores.
way in Massachusetts.
Yes, there were specific
Blue
stores.
laws.
The Packy store where you would go and get them.
Okay, in England, packy is a very common slang term for people from Pakistan.
Oh yeah, no.
Did you know that?
I did not know that, but I can.
Now you do.
I can pretty much assure you that that's not what it meant.
Okay, here's one that I've never heard, and apparently it's common. There were 3 brothers who came to America. One went north, one went south, and the third went west.
That sounds like a joke.
I know.
When you're setting up the rule of threes,
Right.
A rabbi, a priest, they'll walk into a bar and.
This is an excuse used by lazy genealogists who cannot explain why the same surname exists in different places. In fact, the families are probably not related at all. Okay, who is it that thinks 100 years ago everybody with the same name was related? That's not that long ago.
I don't know.
It's insane. He said, it's interesting to note that nobody ever seems to know the first names of these brothers. I find it amusing that nobody ever mentions 4 brothers or 5 brothers. There are always 3. This one is a red flag. Ignore any claims of 3 brothers. Also, why? So wait, one went north, south, and east? North, west, and east? But who went south?
I don't know. Alfred Hitchcock went north by northwest.
Why would they only north? Did I say north, south?
I don't know what you said.
Whatevs. You know what I mean.
To me, that sounds like when a bigot says, "Oh, yeah, some of my best friends are Jewish. Do you know that? Do you know them? They're Jewish as well."
Don't get me started on this one.
Yes, we all know each other.
Yes.
We have our secret meeting.
We all go to the same synagogue.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, myth number 4. We are descended from a Cherokee princess.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
There's no such thing as a Cherokee princess.
Maybe
the
that's
bottom
why.
line is, North American Indians don't have royalty and never did.
What about chief and that kind of thing?
I think there were chiefs. I don't know. I doubt that they made up that term, though. Whoever was the leader of the tribe.
But weren't leaders looked upon as sort of like what we would consider royalty? I mean, in their own cultural way.
But but there were no princesses.
I see.
My point.
Okay.
When Pocahontas went to England, the publicists of the 17th century claimed she was a princess in order to create publicity. That's probably where the princess myth came from.
Ah, that's so
and
interesting.
Also, and P.T. Barnum apparently, because he would have female Indian performers. And would always use the word princess with them too. So
it sounds more exotic, princess, like a big, a famous Indian princess.
Right. So he says, if you have an Indian princess in your tree, she must have been born in India.
There you go.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
That's an interesting myth. I had not heard that.
Myth number 5. Our family has always spelled the name as. So, people like if they see it spelled some other way, then they're sure that they can't be related because of that. I mean, that's complete baloney. So the moment you insist your surname was always spelled in a particular way, you just labeled yourself as a beginning genealogist. They vary widely. People who created earlier records often were census takers who wrote down what they heard. We all know that. In the days
That's
when
how
most
rumors
people
get
could not
started.
Exactly. It's like a game of telephone. Many did not know how to spell their own names. When a clerk asked, how do you spell that? The most common answer was, I don't know. A census taker late for dinner on a long, hot, dusty summer day may not have cared whether the name was spelled Stewart with an U or an EW. This is so true. And in fact, when I will find different spellings from just one generation of the same person. So, in fact, I have a case right now where we're looking for the paternal side for this one lady, and her highest paternal match is Levesque, Lavec, and there are no other Levesques anywhere, but there are Levesques, Levesque, which is obviously the French version of Levesque, or Levesque is the French version of that. So, my daughter in fourth grade, she had a teacher. She had two teachers. There were two teachers at her school that were siblings. And so they had the same last name, and they were Filipino.
Okay.
And one pronounced it Osei and one pronounced it Wasai.
Oh.
So there were siblings. They worked in the same place, but you said their name differently.
Well, I have a sibling, and we have totally different last names. So
yes, but you're not full siblings.
This is true. Yes.
Yeah. I always thought that was weird, but whatever.
That is weird. I wonder why they did that.
I wonder if there was a rift.
Yeah. It's sort of like, what was it? Keeping Up Appearances, the British sitcom. There was her name was Phoebe Bucket, but she would say it was Bouquet.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. It's that Bucket woman, and she'd say it's Bouquet.
If my name was Bucket, I would just change it, I think. Although my son is Beckett. And the first thing my husband's grandmother said when we told her we were going to name him Beckett, she exclaimed, "They're going to call him Bucket."
Oh, so. I thought you were going to say people called him Becquet.
That's the French pronunciation.
Beckett. I love the name Beckett. I think it's a great name. And I don't know that I've ever met anybody named Beckett.
Can I tell you, I hadn't either until I had Beckett. In fact, we had decided on Beckett while I was pregnant, and it was easy to come by. It's one of my husband's favorite plays and films about Thomas Becket, and I like I like British history, so it was cool for me too. Not Beckett the playwright, by the way, not Samuel Beckett. It's Thomas.
Yeah,
Becket.
I was thinking Samuel Beckett. Okay,
most people do. That's with two T's. Ours is with one T.
I see. Oh, gotcha.
Which people make that mistake.
That's why he would never be a Beckett, because you need two T's for an et. And preferably an E. Yes.
Yes. So when I was pregnant with him, I was like, oh, yeah, we're going to have the best name. And so I was at the park one day with my daughter, and I heard a little girl go, "Hi, Beckett." And I was like, "What? Huh? And I ran up to her, and I said, "Who'd you call Beckett?" And she said, "Him." And I went to the kid, and I said, "Is your name Beckett?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "How do you spell it?" And he said, Becket. And I said, oh, what are you named after? And he said, "Thomas Beckett." And I said, "That's right."
And then he ran home and
to
cried.
His mother. Yes. But then, so that was the other Beckett that I found. And then when he was born, we were in that same park, and there was me and Beckett and another mom who actually is a well-known actress and her son, and we were both on the swings, and he was really cute. And finally I said, "Oh, what's his name?" And she said, "Beckett," spelled the same way. I was like, "Are you kidding?"
And they were around the same age.
Almost exactly the same age.
Are there more myths?
There are. Do we have enough time for them?
I think we have time for one more myth.
Oh, let's just do this because I had a thought about it. Our ancestor was a stowaway on the ship. That's a romantic story, but rarely true. If a stowaway ever was found, he normally would be sent back in chains to the old country on the ship's return. Very few ever escaped and became residents of the New World. Yes, undoubtedly there were a few exceptions, but not nearly as have been claimed in recent years by various families. If you hear such a claim in your family, try to prove it. I doubt if you can. Now, I think the reason a lot of people think this is because in a lot of the records, in the manifests, there's always a list of deserters.
Okay.
And they the slang for that or colloquialism for that was jumping ship.
Okay. Oh.
And that meaning they were crew and they came to wherever they were going, in this case, Australia. And then they're like, hey, I think I want to stay here. So they would disappear. And that would be considering jumping ship. But if you didn't know that and you looked at the manifest and it saw that you jumped ship, then they would think they literally jumped off the ship into the water.
See, it's all about language and how we use it. I thought you were going to say it's because of Jack in Titanic. It's so romantic to think of a stowaway, you know? Although
he wasn't even
He
a
wasn't.
stowaway.
He won the passage in a card game or something, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm. He and Danny Nucci with his very, very strong Italian accent. I just watched that movie the other day.
Oh, really? How does it hold up?
You know, I've never been crazy about that movie. Flame me if you want. But there are so many things about it that bug me.
Why does the ship have to go down?
Yeah, couldn't have had a happier ending? The thing that bothers me the most is that door or whatever it was that she was floating on clearly had room for him.
Oh, that's a big thing. Yeah. They've talked.
Like,
they've asked what's Leonardo DiCaprio about that. Like, why didn't she make room for you?
Why didn't she make room for you?
It is kind of a big deal, though.
Her.
If you're going to make the whole story about this couple and how he didn't survive and she did. Oh, spoiler alert. Sorry if you haven't seen Titanic from 23 years ago.
I wonder if they shot an alternate ending.
Well, no, I doubt that. But I mean, just maybe gave her a smaller board to lay on. You know. Well, I mean, really. If they were doing all of the details of that ship, like right down to the precious china and all that stuff, I think they could have picked a smaller door for her to lay on. So that questions like that wouldn't pop up, right?
Precisely.
Yeah. On that note, I think we should take a break.
Thank you for listening to Cut Off Genes with Julie Dixon Jackson and Richard Castle. You can support us by going to patreon.com/Cutoff Genes podcast. Now, back to the program.
Okay, we're back, and it is story time.
Yay! What do we have today, Julie?
Today we have Lisette Austin. Now, Lisette contacted me a few months ago. She's a listener, but she also has her own podcast and is her own adoptee. I'm my own adoptee. But she has a great story, and we've talked about, just things got out of control. But anyway, I finally got to talk to her. I have a caveat. Normally I'm too loud, and the person that I'm interviewing isn't loud enough. So I changed the settings, and now I'm not loud enough, especially in the first part. So I'm just giving you a warning. But it fixes itself at some point, or maybe I fixed it. So this is Lisette, and we talked for an hour and a half. And
this will be a lot of segments.
Yeah, this will be at least 3 or 4. I mean, trust me, you won't mind. She's a delight.
Oh, that's so nice. Well, let's listen into segment 1.
Okay, let's. Hey, everybody. I have on the line Lisette Austin. She's here to tell her story, and we have been trying to connect for the longest time. Actually, she's been very patient.
No worries. It's been worth the wait.
You reached out to me when? Like was it December or before that?
I don't know. I think it might have been January.
Yeah. Whatever it was like so intriguing, and I loved your letter or your message, but I was in the middle of it. So I was like, please hold up. I swear I want to talk to you. So now we're talking. We have so much to talk about. First of all, I want to know, you have a podcast, right?
I do.
Can we
have
talk
a podcast.
About that first?
Sure.
Just a little bit.
Okay. Yes, I have a podcast.
Yes.
I am a traveler. I'm a travel fanatic. And so I ended up starting a podcast where I interview women who've found creative ways to travel more. And that has been really fun. I personally travel by using a ton of frequent flyer miles and points, or, I rack up award
Ooh,
travel
I need to
reward
talk to you about
points.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
And miles. And so I always have over 1 million or more. I think I have 1.5 million right now. So there was a process as to why I was trying to build an audience, because I think I was trying to sell an online course. But that's aside, I love podcasting. So now the Globetrotter Lounge is my podcast, but I am getting ready to start a new podcast probably in 2021. It'll be about DNA travel.
Yay!
Woohoo!
I love that idea so very much.
Yes.
So
and
much.
I'll probably tell my epic Odyssey on that as well.
I have such a desire to literally go like by myself to Europe and just walk in the footsteps of my ancestors.
Yes.
I love that idea.
If it weren't for the pandemic, I was supposed to be in Ireland in March, end of March, with my 2 biological brothers. And we were going to, we had mapped I had found all the places using Ancestry and had researched everything. And of course, we didn't go.
All that? Did you do the Google
I did
Earth
use
thing?
Google Earth at one point. Yes. So, that was super exciting. And that was the side of my family that I knew a lot about. So I was like on it, but we didn't go, but we rescheduled. I don't know if we'll go anytime soon, but in the meantime, I may do some road tripping to some DNA locations because it counts in the United States. So I'm still going to start my podcast.
All right. So on top of all that, you are also an adoptee?
I am an adoptee.
Okay. So please tell your story. Go.
Basically, I was born in 1970 in Seattle, and it was a closed adoption, domestic adoption. And the interesting piece about it was that my birth mother was the client of a therapist at the time who was a colleague of my adoptive father. So my adoptive father is a child psychiatrist, retired now. Okay. And this was, his colleague's client was my birth mother. So it came out, she was young, she was 15, and it came out during during one of those sessions, oops, privacy, whatever. Okay, Here we are talking about it on a podcast. But anyway, she was very, very, very stressed out for obvious reasons, but she had this secret she needed to unburden. And what it was that she's like, no one's going to want this baby because nobody knows, but this baby's half black and nobody's going to want this baby. And
that's just heartbreaking to hear.
I know. And that says something. I mean, I don't know. So she was getting messages. I don't know where she's getting those messages from, but maybe, whatever. It was 1970. Maybe her family had some racism going on, but she felt very freaked out. Yeah. And the good thing was my therapist was like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. No, you don't have to worry. I actually know this couple, and they're an interracial couple, and they can't have kids. And the dad is black and the mom is white, and this will be perfect. And that really lifted her spirits. And he was part of how the adoption got arranged. Thank you, Ned Wagner. And that's pretty important to the story too, because even though I was a closed adoption, I definitely did not know names or any identifying information. I had a little extra knowledge because that colleague shared some things with my dad like that. Like I shouldn't have known that. You know what I mean? But I had a few juicy tidbits, enough that I kind of felt, I think, kind of satiated. Like I wasn't one of the adoptees who wanted to look for birth family. I just was like, I learned when I was really young. I don't really remember learning, when I was adopted. I don't remember them telling me. Yeah. I think my mom said I was 4. And she did say that I was grumpy for a little while, but at one point when I kind of really asked her about it, and she was like, I think you were kind of mad and you drew some angry pictures like one day and then you were fine.
Oh, interesting.
Like, okay.
Some angry pictures.
Yeah. I asked her more about what I drew. I don't know. Yeah. But as far as I remember, I just always knew. And I always knew that my mom was really young, that, she just couldn't do this motherhood thing at this point in her life. And that, of course the story was like, oh, and we were so happy that it worked out. Like, I'm mixed race, so people think I really look like my adoptive parents. Sure. And nobody really believed me when I would say I was adopted. They go, no, you're not. So anyway, my adoptive mom and I have had some challenges in our relationship, but I have to say that, how we wish we kind of aren't like our parents sometimes, but we are. Like there's some things about her that I really I'm kind of like her. And then my dad was just this real sweet guy who's easy to love and kind of sometimes really worked way too much, wasn't really around, just because of that. But when he was around, he was just always super like unconditionally loving. So it was like, my mom was loving too and provided a lot of fun activities. Oh my God, I was an activities kid. So it was like I was too busy to think about it, just doing my thing, and then, of course, hit the rebellious teen years. But even then didn't think like, hey, these aren't my, I'm so angst-ridden. These aren't even my parents. Like, of course, they were my parents. Didn't even occur to me anything different. So I got through all that, until I ended up meeting a woman who was looking for her son. And I was about maybe 27 or 28. And that kind of threw me. I just, listening to her, she said that she had been waiting. She figured it was maybe up to him to find her. And he hadn't done this. She was in her 40s now, and she just couldn't stand it any longer. And so I thought, oh my goodness. Because people would ask me before that, they go, don't you want to find out who your birth parents are? And I'd go, no, not really. I didn't really have this reaction to it. I'd be like, no, I'm good. Mm-hmm. But when she said that, I was like, oh, maybe someone wants to know how I'm doing. It just got me out of my little bubble.
Yeah, did it suddenly click that there are people out there that you're connected to?
Yes.
That,
it was like, oh. And, there was definitely a part of me, I think that, those projects I've heard you talk about on the podcast, because, yes, I've listened to every single episode. And it's come up more than once.
Yes.
There were times where I definitely could feel like, Oh, but I didn't say this. I did know that my birth mother was Italian, and I think maybe even Italian and Irish, and I knew that my birth father was Black. So at least I could say that.
Yes.
But sometimes I didn't know the Black side. It kind of bothered me though, because I was like, well, was he from the slavery situation? Was he did he just happen to be in from Africa? Was he from Jamaica? I didn't know the details, but I was like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Black.
Yeah.
Irish,
African American,
so maybe
it doesn't just means you're a Black person in America, but you're not necessarily African American.
Right, exactly. And it could be that, there's so many different experiences and people could have just recently moved here. So anyway, it's just really, it was like I knew enough to be sort of okay with those project questions. But every now and then I would kind of wonder a little bit, like, I wish I knew more,
Right.
But I mostly was fine. So anyway, that's why I thought, I'm good. And then I had some of those stories, some of that knowledge of what had happened. And, and so I felt like I was good. But when she said that, it changed my perspective. And at the exact same time, I had a doctor, this woman who just really started bugging me about needing to know my medical history. Like she literally was like, excuse me, I really think this is important. Oh. I think I'm encouraging you to find out who your birth parents are. And it was kind of coming at me on two sides.
Wait, did she see something that alarmed her?
No, she just said,
I wish all doctors did that.
If you ever want to have kids, if you're, I was getting married, and she just thought, if you thought of this, it'd be really good to know your medical history. Like it bugged her. When people would just be like, I don't know. Because as you know, that's what we write down, like unknown. Yeah. Yes. She's like, you should know this. This is not okay. You need to know this, And so those things collided. And I thought, you know what? Mm-hmm. Maybe I do want to find something out. Mm-hmm. Could I find something out? And so this was in the late 90s.
Okay.
And at the time there was this organization, I think they're still around, called the Washington Adoption Rights Movement.
Okay.
And they basically served as intermediaries, and they would petition the courts to open your records. And you paid them not too much, maybe a couple $100 or something, and get an intermediary. And I got one named Mary, and she was super nice. And she said, I'd be happy to help you find your birth mother. And I was like, wow, this is getting really weird and real. Like, are we doing this? So it got a little more weird, because she literally did what she said. She'd been doing this for years. She was an adoptee, and she said it was the fastest search she'd ever done. It took her under 5 minutes. She basically from the moment she got my records from the court to when she was talking to my birth mother was under 5 minutes.
Oh, so she got the records.
Yeah, they petitioned to open the records, and they give it to the intermediary. But then, of course, they have to follow a certain process.
Yes.
And they have to guard the birth mother's privacy and get like papers signed and do all this stuff. So I didn't know anything.
Oh, so you weren't allowed to know her name yet?
No.
Okay.
So she's like, are you ready for this? Hold on to your hold on to your chair or whatever, and buckle your seatbelt, because I just found your birth mother. It was like the next day. I'm like, excuse me, what? And so she said, yeah, I just, saw the address on the paperwork, and I said, I'll grab the phone book. Yes, there were phone books still.
Yep.
Yeah. So she grabbed the phone book and she opened it. It was an unusual last name. Mm-hmm. There were only a few of them. Yeah, very helpful. Mm-hmm. There were a few of them in town. So she saw the name that was listed as the mother of my grandmother. And it was still the same address. So she called the house and my birth mother answered.
Oh, wow. That's nutty. Okay, cool.
I know. So I was like, whoa, okay. So she's like, well, I said, what do I do now? She's like, well, you write a letter. I said, okay, great. So I write a letter. And she basically, she'd already contacted my birth mother. She says, I'm going to send you a letter with a picture. That all goes well. She did go to my birth mother's house, which usually she wouldn't have done, but there was some reason to actually bring it. I can't remember why anymore, but she brought it over there and she said that people were excited. They were all at the house. So she said, it was this really nice house in this neighborhood, really not very far in Seattle from where I grew up. I'd say like maybe a 10 or 15 minute drive.
Weird.
And she says, very nice house. There's all her siblings were there. You have a lot of siblings. And your mom looks really Italian. And she also has something wrong with her arm. And I didn't know about that yet, but I would learn more about that. But she said, they were really excited. So she signed the paperwork. She really is excited to talk to you. Great. Okay. So now I'm getting like nervous because I'm like, what is this all about? Like all of a sudden, like this is going faster than I ever imagined. And so I'm, nervous and I don't even know how I feel about it. I'm actually starting to get a little bit of a feeling of cold feet. Like,
maybe you need to process it a little more.
Yeah. Like, whoa. Yeah, what am I doing? And I'm in my late 20s, I'm like still pretty young. And I hadn't really done now there's all these podcasts and books and, I hadn't done any of that.
Right.
I think I got a pamphlet from the organization. Like, here's some things to think about, but that was it. Like, I don't even remember what it said.
Yeah.
And whatever my intermediary, she was being really cool. Like, hey, just know that it's, could go weird or it could. So she was giving me a little guidance, but
that's good.
I was just like thrown into the situation. So she gets on the phone. So first of all, I call my birth mother. The next day we arranged a time because since she signed the paperwork, then I got the name.
Okay.
Right. I got her name. And when I heard her name, it was just like, whoa, that's when I think I got freaked out. Cause I'm like, weird, this is a real person.
Yep.
Like I'm never going to undo that. Like now I know this is actually my birth. So we get on the phone and the first thing is she puts my little brother that I don't know I have on the phone before she even talks to me, which is a little bit of a weird red flag for me. Cause I'm like, I could be a wackadoo. Like, why is
bizarre.
This 8-year-old? Why is this 8-year-old on the phone with me first? So anyway, I won't go into the whole story, but let's just say that it turned out to be very kind of a difficult experience because first of all, she just kind of talked and wasn't really interested in me. It felt like, she just kind of, I think I remember something about this in your story. I don't know, but she just talked. And
that's very, very familiar.
Yes. And
like all about herself and just went off and never asked you a single question about you.
Exactly.
Oh,
and I don't know why I would sometimes feel even guilty talking about it. Like I'm trying to say something bad about her, but it's just, she clearly had some issues.
Yes.
Like it just was the way it was.
No. It's a psychological thing. It's a narcissistic, sociopathic thing. Yes. I hear you. I validate you.
Okay. Well, and I don't know about the sociopathic part, but it was definitely very self-centered and like she was very the good side of it was I got a lot of notes because she talked a lot about everything. She also kind of did a big TMI dump.
Ooh,
told me every.
Did she describe it like when you were conceived?
No, that was the only thing she didn't. The thing I'd probably want to know about, right? But she talked a lot about herself and talked a lot about the family, and so from that standpoint, it was really like useful.
Yeah.
Like okay, so I'm taking notes. I'm all
unless she was lying
and everything. Well,
that was my problem because the guy who was not my
right.
dad anyway, he was lying anyway. I'm like, well, what use are you? Okay,
I know.
Go ahead.
Right. So in this case, I learned a lot. But what I also learned was that she'd had a very difficult life. She had this. She'd had polio as a child, and that had actually her arm. Was not usable. She had a disability from that. And so she'd had a lot of struggles in school, and she was one of a very big family. And I think I don't remember what order she's, I feel like she's not the oldest. She's not the youngest. She's somewhere in the middle, but she pretty much lived in the same house her whole life. She was still at the same address. And so she'd never really worked. She'd never really done much of anything. It was almost like she hadn't grown up. So the point is she was really, she was kind of saying things that were very big and intense around things like, oh, so you can come. I used to be an angry person, but now that you've called, I'll never be angry again. Or like,
oh dear.
I know all your aunts and uncles have all these issues, but now that you're here, you can fix them.
Okay, and that is the end of part 1 of Lisette's epic Odyssey. We haven't gotten into the DNA part yet, but this is just as interesting. But DNA will be involved, I swear.
Isn't it always?
It always is. Always.
Julie, I think it's that time when I need to tell everybody about myself.
Please do.
I'm Richard Castle. Damn
The
it.
end.
Yeah, the end. You can follow me on Twitter, where I post very occasionally at Castle Songs, or you can also look for my website, richardcastle.com, and learn about the life I had when I was a pianist. I'm still a musical theater writer, so that I can still say I'm doing.
I'm Julie Dixon Jackson. You can find me on Twitter at Jules Jackson with 2 O's. You can find the podcast on Twitter at CutOff Jeans Pod. Find us on Facebook, CutOff Jeans Podcast. Answer a simple question, and I'll probably let you in. Send me an email, julesjackson@cutoffjeans.com.
And I just want to send another little shout out to all of our Patreon subscribers and say thank you so much for supporting us. And Julie, we usually end this podcast with a little sermon, do we not?
We do.
But fortunately, the sermon is very short.
It is, and it really is what I live by. The truth is in your jeans.